to share, I think.
I do.
Okay. This meeting tonight, or this webinar, is about navigating the workplace with periodic paralysis. And we have these two people here because we hope that you're going to gain something, some knowledge that you can take back to the workplace or into your life in a different place to hopefully get you moving at your place of business. We've had so many questions come into the PPA about what to do when you're working and you have to take time off because you're having an attack, or a member of your family is having an attack. So Evelyn and Christine are going to address those topics tonight and also help you in maybe trying to find a different job if you feel that the one that you're already trying to do, you can no longer do. So Evelyn, take it away.
Hi, good afternoon, good evening, actually, everybody. So I am Evelyn Black, and I am one of the newer board members. I was recruited by our lovely treasurer, Monica Kramer, and I'm really happy to be serving on the board and, working to create awareness for the PPA and for all of you. So just a little bit about myself. The first thing I want to preface this conversation by saying is that I am not an employee law attorney. Okay, so I am an HR manager, and I do have a master's degree in human resource management. And of course, I have learned a lot about compliance and some of the rules that govern leave of absence. But certainly, I am not an attorney, and so I would always advise that you seek one if you have a specific situation that you need to address. So with that being said, I'm going to Linda, have you made me an organizer yet?
Yes, you're an organizer. Yep.
Okay, so can you guys see the PowerPoint?
Yeah, okay, just a minute. Yes, I know what you want me to do. Okay. I'm going to make you a presenter, Evelyn.
Yes. That's what I meant.
Yep, there you go.
Excelente. Show my screen. All right, here we go. Okay, so again, my specialty is in human resource management, and as such, I have had to deal with situations regarding leave of absence, Fmla, ADA, American with Disabilities Act. So those are the things that I'm going to go over this evening. It's important to note that these both FMLA and ADA are governed by federal laws. However, there are also state and local laws that can apply, and so they're very specific to each state. Generally speaking, like the federal law is like the set floor, and then usually the states will give additional rights to employees. So what I'm going to go over today is just the basic federal law. And so, let me minimize this. Okay. And so navigating workplace policy, very important, particularly for so many of you who have to deal with periodic, why won't it? Okay, here we go. So the first one that we're going to chat about is the Family Medical Leave Act, the FMLA, and that's probably the one that you've heard about the most if you've ever been employed here in the U.S. There are some nuances, right? Not all employers have to abide by this federal law. I know that sounds interesting, but the truth is that an employer has to have 50 or more employees within a 75-mile radius in order to have to comply with FMLA. And so, for example, in my particular circumstance, I work for a construction company, and although we have more than 50 employees, I do not have to manage FMLA because my employees are scattered all around the state of Florida. And so I don't have 50 employees within a 75-mile radius. So that's something that you'd have to certainly look up first and foremost, is know if your employer must comply with FMLA. So what FMLA is basically it provides rights to employees for job-related unpaid absences. So if you have a qualifying medical reason to have protections from your employer, that upon your return from your leave of absence, your job should still be secured for you under certain conditions, which we are going to go over here in a minute. But the first thing that I wanted to say is it's a protection that allows you to take a leave of absence. And so this leave of absence entitles an employee to a total of 12 weeks of leave of unpaid time off within a 12-month period. That's very important to know. In order to be eligible for FMLA, you'd have to have worked for the employer for the past 12 months and accrued at least 1,250 hours within that 12-month period in order to be eligible. So there's eligibility on the side of the employer, and there's eligibility for the employee as well. So aside from the eligibility requirements, we also have to have qualifying reasons for FMLA. So I'm going to just click on this little hyperlink right here, and it's going to take us to, here we go. Is that large enough to view, ladies?
Hello? I can read it.
Yes, I can read
You
it.
can
I
read
can
it?
read
Okay.
it. Yep. Mm-hmm.
All right, perfect. So this document is from the Department of Labor, and you can always go to any of these .gov sites and gather this information on your own. This is the most updated form. I know it says 2015, but it's the last time it was updated. Basically, this kind of goes into more details about what a qualifying reason is to be able to take a leave of absence. First and foremost, the birth of a child or the adoption of a child. But I'm going to scroll down to what pertains to us, which is a serious health condition that makes it impossible for an employee to perform their essential functions of their job. So I'm going to just scroll down a little bit more. Okay, so essentially, you're eligible, or there's a qualifying reason if a healthcare provider finds and has to document that you are unable to perform your work at all. So that usually is, that usually pertains to people who have a temporary limitation, maybe a surgery or something of that nature, and they know they're going to be out for so many weeks. In the case of people with periodic paralysis, you guys kind of have, intermittent and unscheduled lapses. So in a moment, we'll talk about what intermittent FMLA looks like. But essentially, if you're unable to perform your job functions for a period of time, generally speaking, the doctor would give the employer all the medical certifications to state that. So for the caregivers who are online, there are protections for caregivers as well. Certainly, it has to be a very close lineage relationship in order for those protections to cover. It's either a spouse, a child, or a parent. So in some states, I will say that domestic partnerships are covered, but again, not in all of the states. So, but this document here, which you can access from the PowerPoint, which I'm happy to share, of course, will take you to some specific forms so that you can navigate the rules behind FMLA. So I'm going to get out of here and go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so here we are. So basically that document I just shared kind of goes over all these little bullet points here. What FMLA is, who's eligible, what an eligible employer looks like, the period of time that you can take FMLA for, and the different reasons behind this type of protection. Okay, so let's say that you are employed with a company who has 50 or more employees, and you know that you are going to need to take some time off because of your condition. So the burden is on the employee to prove this medical condition, and there are forms that you have to fill out extensively, actually, unfortunately, that have sections for the employee to fill out as well as for the medical professionals to fill out for you. So all employers that have to abide by FMLA will have posters displayed within their businesses that states that they have to comply with FMLA. So you would have seen them hung around somewhere in the office, maybe the break room or near the HR office. And the employees, again, they have to bring up the medical condition to the employer. I will say, though, that the federal law does mandate that employers, if they notice, if they see it, they observe that an employee is having some serious medical conditions, they're supposed to give additional information about FMLA to the employee. But unfortunately, I don't know that happens all of the time. So it's so important to educate yourself as to what your rights and your responsibilities are when it comes to the workplace. Let's see. So again, here are some of the forms that I have listed here. Let's see, I'm going to click on the first one. And this form kind of gives you a sample. Now, some employers will have an FMLA form that they've developed for themselves. Usually it mirrors this particular form. So if you know that you're going to be requesting FMLA, you can kind of use this as a guide even before you speak to the employer, so you know exactly what kind of information you're going to have to collect. But if you go down the form, obviously your identifying information is there. As you can see, it very specifically asks you, how long you've been with the employer, how many hours you've worked for the employer. Very important to list all the essential job functions of your role. You can usually find that in the job description. If there are any physical essential functions of the job, those should be listed in the job description. If you don't have a job description, you need to reach out to your HR department and ask them to provide you for one. Section 2 is for the healthcare provider. And unfortunately, I know that in some instances, some of you may still be in the process of being diagnosed and having, a true medical assessment completed. But to be honest, I'm not sure how we would navigate this if you don't already have a diagnosis from a medical provider. That would make it very much more complicated. But in the event that you do have the diagnosis, you would have a doctor, and they would have to list all of your medical history. Now, there are HIPAA laws, of course, so they don't have to go into details about what your condition looks like, but they do have to list the diagnosis, and they have to say whether or not it's a chronic condition. And of course, we do know that it is a long-term condition, what you guys unfortunately have to live with. But in that instance, as you can see, the check boxes down here, either the chronic condition or, permanent or long-term conditions are more for people who have, how would you say, what list here, Alzheimer's, cancer, different stages of cancer. So they have to have chemo regularly or, something of that nature. You scroll down a little bit more and then it'll say the amount of leave that's being requested, and scroll down a little bit more. They go into the essential functions of the role a little bit more. It's pretty straightforward, honestly. I know it looks like a lot of wording, but as it pertains to you all, this form is covering pregnancy, it's covering military leave, it's covering some other things, so it's just all worded in there. Come back here. This is the form if you are the caregiver for somebody who is suffering from PP. And again, there has to be substantial information included in this form, description of the condition, healthcare provider information. So it would be the same situation. You'd fill out your portion and then you take it to the doctor so they could fill out that portion as well, the patient's doctor. This form right here kind of talks a little bit more about the rights and responsibilities under FMLA for the employee. So it kind of asks the same similar questions. Who is it for yourself? Is it for your spouse? Is it for your child? Is it for your parent? Kind of tells you here again, see whether you're eligible or not. It kind of helps you kind of figure out whether or not you will be approved for FMLA. If you can check all these boxes and you can fill out all this information, then you know that you're going to be able to comply with the documentation that the employer is asking of you. So I would definitely use this kind of like checks and balances to make sure that you do meet all the requirements. From my firsthand knowledge of PP, I think that intermittent FMLA is going to be what's going to apply to so many of you at a greater level. So people often think that if they take FMLA, that means they have to take the 12 weeks consecutively. But in reality, the leave of absence is not determined by that length of time. You can take it in separate periods of time due to it does have to be related to the same illness though, okay? So you have a diagnosis for PP and you go to your employer and you say, you know what, I can only do like 30 hours a week. I can't work a full 40 hours a week. And so those 10 hours a week would count toward your 12-week total for the year. And so rather than it be a continuous period, it can be broken down by the hour. So I'm really hoping that's making sense because I feel like I just jumbled a little bit. But at any rate, the bottom line is you can take those 12 weeks and break them up into hours and spread it out a span of several weeks, maybe even over a 6-month period. So I think I wrote an example here. It can be used for doctor's appointments, or it can be used. Some of your fellow members have shared with me that the morning time can be a difficult time to get going, and so maybe instead of going into work at 8 in the morning or so, you could make it so that you would go in later in the morning. Let me actually go back to let me stay on FMLA for another moment. It's really important to understand that that it's not proving this qualifying reason for having FMLA the first time around with your employers is going to be super important. Filling out those documents the first time around properly is just going to make it that much more difficult for that request to be denied. So I would really recommend that it's not something it's something that is done with a lot of caution, because the truth of the matter is that employers should approve FMLA, but they do try and find reasons to deny it, right? The fact of the matter is that the condition of the employee cannot present an undue hardship to the employer. So if you are like an essential employee, you carry out a function that cannot be replicated by any other employee on staff, well then the employer is not obligated to take, an economic downturn because you're not able to be, present for that role that you carry out. So it's very important to prove eligibility, to time in a timely fashion, give the paperwork. The better you work to meet that criteria, the harder it'll be for them to deny the FMLA to you. Let's see. Okay. Well, so let's say you during your 12-month period, you took your FMLA, you exhausted your 12 weeks, you went through them, but obviously there's still a disability that is going to impede your ability to carry out your essential job functions. So this is where the American with Disabilities Act would come in to help cover, to give you some additional coverage. Similar to FMLA, this is another federal law, and also has some different state and local nuances. But essentially, employers are not allowed to discriminate against people with disabilities in the hiring process, or once the person is employed and discloses that they have a disability. So basically, the employee puts the employer to notice that they have a disability, and now the employer has to look to see if they can provide a reasonable accommodation so that that person can continue to carry out their essential job functions. So what is considered an essential job function is basically something, basically you can perform those functions with or without an accommodation. So that is what qualifies an applicant with a disability when it comes to essential job functions. Sorry, I'm going to take a drink of water real quick. Okay. So I have a few definitions here, like what is an individual with a disability? Someone who has a physical or mental impairment that limits their major life functions, is recorded as an impairment. Again, so important to have all the medical information to substantiate the impairment. I have this terminology here again about an undue hardship. When it comes to accommodations, employers can do different things. I mean, they can give you a modified work schedule. They can allow you to work from home. They can certainly make their place of business ADA friendly with, ramps and and friendly for people with physical disabilities. But when it comes to a specific accommodation for an individual, it has to be something. I believe the dollar value is anything under $500 is considered reasonable. But if they really have to go in there and, purchase a special standing desk or, some kind of intricate situation that costs more than that, it's considered an unreasonable because it imposes a hardship on the business. So there are some other things that qualify undue hardship, but generally speaking, they're going to look at the size of the company, they're going to look at their revenue, they're going to look at how diverse their workforce is, and then that'll help to determine whether or not it's something that would be reasonable for them to comply with or not. Leave as a reasonable accommodation. So kind of talk a little bit more here about how ADA can give you guys protections regarding having a modified work schedule. A 3-day a week, or maybe it's half days. It's incumbent upon the employee to prove that they need this specific accommodation. But most employers, I think, especially in this new climate that we live in, want to try and accommodate as much as possible. And so I think if you have any question as to, or if you're getting roadblocked a little bit when you're having this conversation with the HR person, there are some resources that are available to help you navigate the process a little bit better. But they really are supposed to talk with you specifically to figure out what your needs are. Now, the employer doesn't have to concede accommodations that are basically what an employee desires or what they think is, this is going to be my best situation. They have to try and come up with something together, options that are going to work. They may not necessarily be what you want, but it will allow you to complete your essential functions. Telework has always existed as a reasonable accommodation, but I think now it's going to be that much easier to get these approvals, provided that the company is set up to work remotely. And so I think that I actually read an article recently that the influx of people with disabilities presenting documentation to employers for telework has increased drastically over this last year. So I think that it'll be much easier moving forward to get these approved. I can't remember if I have another slide. Okay. Well, I'm not sure. I've kind of gone. I've kind of pulled the information that I think is going to benefit the listeners the most. I will be definitely sharing my information with Linda in case anybody has some additional questions in the near future that I can help, or at least give you resources, point you in the right direction. I'd be happy to do that. But certainly I think the takeaway is that there are protections for people with disabilities, and the disability or the periodic paralysis, definitely I think would fall under a qualified reason for both FMLA and ADA, and it's just a matter of getting your healthcare provider on board with you to help you fill out the paperwork properly, and present that, and then follow the employer's expectations, of course. Once FMLA is exhausted, they are expecting you to communicate with them regularly, as to your progress, when you're going to return, like never give them a reason, never give the company a reason to deny you your return back to your workplace. So definitely read the fine print, the responsibilities that you have as the employee to educate yourself when it comes to these different protections. Well, I guess I'm going to be turning it over to Christine now.
Okay, thank you, Evelyn. And I just wanted to remind everybody that I am going to be opening up all your mics when Christine gets finished here so that you can actually talk and ask questions of Evelyn and Christine. So just hang in there with us. I know Christine has a little bit different take on this, and I'm going to turn the sharing of the screen over to you now, Christine, so that it's going to be yours to roll with. Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Can you see my desktop?
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. My name's Christine Staskowitz. I have PP. I was diagnosed about 4.5 years ago, but I had struggled with it for all of my life. It was very difficult to hold down a full-time job a good portion of the time. Luckily, I had some employers that were flexible with me, and I was able to stay employed, except for probably about 4.5 years. So I just want to share with you some of the things that I've learned through my own personal experience and also as a recruiter. I've been a recruiter for over 20 years, probably about 24 years with that little 4-year gap in there. But to start, I think I might be on the wrong slide, so hold on. Okay. All right, to start, we're going to talk about starting your own small service-based business, contract opportunities, full and part-time employment opportunities, and then resale opportunities, which also falls under starting your own small business in a way. So I have, in my own experience, had a couple of small businesses where I was able to, work from home or work outside of the home, but during the times when I was able to basically move. So if you're working now and you look at the job that you have, there are sometimes alternatives to working in a regular full-time job while still working for an employer, but it's usually going to be a little bit easier for you if you're working for yourself or if you're able to work remote. So as a recruiter, I have worked on each of the areas that are on the screen. Mechanical or electrical engineers, nurses, IT consultants. I've done a lot of other things, but there just wasn't enough room on the slide. But if there's a job, you can usually recruit for it. I mean, there's some things that probably wouldn't be cost effective, like, people working in the restaurant industry, unless you're talking about professional chefs, then companies would be willing to pay you a fee to find them. If you are working in a secretarial or some kind of office environment, sometimes you can work doing some typing or proofreading or things that don't require you to be at an office, and like filing obviously wouldn't work. But there are other things that you could do, including like customer service. There are companies that are small that might need somebody to handle, answering the phones. Let's say it's a towing company and they need someone that can answer the phones and dispatch their trucks. And that would involve a little bit of an investment on your part. But there are also companies out there that you can contract through. You still have a little bit of an investment, you know, a laptop, a headset that you can plug into your phone, or in some cases they want a hard line into your phone. So we can talk about that in the question and answer period if anybody is interested in that. Even if you were like working in construction, you obviously probably wouldn't be able to continue to do that as a traditional construction worker, but you might be able to do it as a recruiter. There's a huge need for construction people, so companies are usually willing. I actually did that for a while, where I was recruiting construction workers, and there are websites where you can find people that have resumes on the sites, like Indeed. If you have a hobby like sewing or doing crafting, you can do alterations, or you could have an Etsy business. If you were, let's say, a mortgage loan officer in a bank, you have to get a brokerage license, but you would be able to you know, do mortgage brokering as an independent broker. Shopping and thrifting. I actually know somebody who took their thrifting hobby and turned that into a job. I actually know a few people who have done that. And you have to be careful, because you can't, you know, usually go out every day, because I don't know about you guys, but with me, the weather really can kind of throw a monkey wrench into things, especially if it's raining and cold and windy outside. So you have to, you know, keep that in mind. It may not be something where you could make a full amount of the salary that you've had or that you'd like to make, but it might be able to supplement. And you can work even if you're on SSA, and I will have a link to a brochure you can go to, and you can also go onto the Social Security website and learn more about that too. Contract opportunities. In the recruiting field, there are contract opportunities on a pretty regular basis. I got a phone call about one yesterday asking me if I was interested in doing a contract for a year with a very large software firm. But I'm very happy in my position. They work with me. I work from home, and I pretty much make my own hours. If you have any component of a human resources background, a recruiter or someone who does, you know, payroll, things like that, someone who does benefits, there are opportunities out there in the contract realm for those positions. Also, IT programmers, developers. I've even known people who have help desk experience and have started their own business helping small businesses with their help desk problems, you know, setting up their email when they hire someone new, or helping them update their website and things like that. Nurses, I've also placed people as insurance caseworkers. Basically, they're following up with people who have chronic illnesses like diabetes, or they've had a blood clot or other things, and the nurse is calling and talking to them, making sure that they're taking their medication, that they're going to their doctor's appointments and things like that. Teaching, a lot of teaching is happening online now, not just, you know, K through 12 teaching, but also tutoring, teaching English as a second language. I know someone who has been teaching English as a second language to people in China from the comfort of their spare bedroom. So, and as far as if you have been a small business owner in the past, you've owned a restaurant, a retail store, a salon, or a bar, or the list goes on and on, you can be a business consultant. You know, if you understand what the best practices are for your industry, you can pass that information along to people who are either starting a small business, or they're having some problems, maybe struggling a little bit with things. And a lot of the times you can do that over the phone, or there may be some small component of your interaction that would be done in person, but usually, they can work with your schedule. Full and part-time employment opportunities. One thing about the COVID-19 pandemic is a lot of jobs that were done on site in an office in the past have become remote jobs. So there's a chance that that is going to continue even after the pandemic, because companies realize that they don't have to have people in the office. Maybe in the beginning for training they might, but after that they're able to reduce their office space and save money that way by having people working remote. I know someone who has recently started working as a customer service agent for an automobile insurance company, and this company had not been doing that prior to COVID-19. So there might be opportunities out there that weren't available in the past and are now available either temporarily or possibly long-term when this is over, because companies can save money. And I've listed some of those there. I've also listed a website called Indeed.com. I'm not sure how many of you have heard of Indeed or used it, but also because of COVID-19, they have made some updates, and you can see about right here where they list remote positions. So you type in here what kind of position you're looking for. You can type in a title or just a keyword. For instance, I specialize in recruiting Lawson professionals. Lawson is an ERP software. Basically, it's used for accounting and HR and procurement in the healthcare industry. So you could, if you were looking for a job like that, you could put ERP, Lawson, and procurement and remote, and it would bring up everything in the United States. Right now, they're saying as a whole, they have 19,498 remote positions, and of those, 163,692 you would be able to do in your home. That's something to consider. Now, starting your own business, some of the things that you have to think about before you start your own business is what kind of licensing you would need, a business license. Do you want to be incorporated versus a sole proprietorship? And those are things you'd need to speak with someone about regarding the tax implications. There's a lot of things that until I started my own business, I wasn't aware of. So I would definitely talk to somebody about that, maybe at your bank, or the person who helps you with your taxes would be able to help you with that. You'd have to think about what kind of equipment you would need. You would need to have some kind of a business plan. That is something that is probably the most important bullet point on here, is without a business plan, you don't really know what you're doing, and it can get out of control very quickly. As I mentioned before, talking to someone at your bank is important. Company checking accounts are very different from personal checking accounts. And in order to be incorporated, you have to have a separate business account. And there are a lot of different fees that we don't pay with personal accounts that you pay with a business account. That's something important to consider. Contract opportunities usually last between 6 and 12 months. There are tax implications if you are independent or a 1099 contractor versus being a W-2 employee, which means they're the employer of record. They send you a W-2 at the end of the year. They offer you benefits. You have time off. All of the benefits and privileges of being a W-2 employee. As a 1099 contractor, you are not employed by anyone other than yourself, and you don't get any of the benefits that you would as an employee, and that includes paid time off. There may be some contract opportunities that require you to have some kind of equipment. It could be a laptop, it could be a phone, a landline. There's different things depending on the opportunity. And then full and part-time work. There are some positions that you would be an employee, and the ones that I have had the most interaction with, I've listed here. So there are lots of others, but these are the ones that I've actually placed people in jobs. So I would say the recruiter position is probably the one I've worked with the most. And then the customer service role. The COVID-19 contact tracer obviously is something new. The online tutor position, like I said, I know someone who's been in that role teaching English to people in China, and they really loved it. The hours are a little bit odd. They had kids, and this kind of fit right into that. So there's just a lot of different things that you can consider. Working from home, when I'm having a bad day, if I can get my laptop into bed with me, I can just work from my own bed. But I do have an office set up in my house that just makes it very simple. If I can, just get down the hallway, then I'm able to get some things done. And it's really made a big difference for me. Resale opportunities. I have had 2 businesses, and I know a few other people who have also done this. Back on the very beginning when I started, I would go to estate sales and I'd go to Goodwills and things, and I would find collectibles or antique furniture or other things that I felt that, I could see some profit out of. And I had a booth at an antique mall. And that was a very good fit for me. On the days that I was feeling pretty good, I could go out and do my shopping at the antique stores and vintage stores. And then the days that I wasn't feeling that great, I wasn't obligated to be anywhere. I then later on went in and did an eBay store, and I know a few other people who've done that as well. And one person especially had a really good experience with Poshmark. So I don't know how easy that was to do, but that might be something that we could talk about in another meeting. Is find some people who've had success with that, and they can kind of give you the crib notes on how to do that. Turning a hobby into an income, I did that too. I sew. So I would, make costumes for Halloween or help out with my local theater group and make costumes for them or do alterations and things like that. I know someone who had football cards from childhood, and they were able to turn those into some income. And another person that did the same thing, but with vintage toys and records, because vinyl records have become very popular lately. The 8-tracks and cassette tapes did not go over quite as well. Now, working while on disability. You may be able to work while you're collecting Social Security disability benefits. You need to visit this site, and there is a pamphlet. I think it's more like a little booklet. It's probably about 28 pages long, if I remember correctly, but it goes into pretty good detail about the limitations and restrictions of working while you're on Social Security disability. When I came back to work probably about 10 years ago, I had experience doing this. It's not as complicated as it sounds. The best thing to do is maybe talk to the attorney that helped you to get your disability benefits if you had one, and they'd be able to help you a little bit. They can help you walk through that, or talking to somebody at the Social Security Administration. So that's it. That's all I have. Back to you, Linda.
Okay. Well, all our pictures will be here again in just a minute. I think Evelyn is still here. There she is. Thank you both. That was really interesting. I know I have been on well, now I get regular Social Security, but I was on Social Security disability, and I know it can be a challenge trying to work and get Social Security, but there are ways around it. So I'm glad to hear that they now have a pamphlet for that. I wanted to mention, just in my own personal experience, that sometimes even volunteering in a role can lead to employment with someone that you may not have thought that you'd like that job, but the volunteering becomes so important in your life that you know, working for the same company is also really rewarding. So that's also something I have done. I'm going to open up everybody's mic now so that you can all talk, and just don't all talk at the same time. I'm going to try and call on you. And if you have a question, I believe that there's a little hand that you can raise right beside your name. And if you would do that, you can address the questions that you have to any of us. And even if it doesn't relate to what we're talking about tonight, if you have a question about the PPA or some other medical question, I'll do my best to answer those for you. So here you go. You're all going to be live now.
It looks like Brian Dodge has a question.
Let's see. Oh,
Hey everyone, can you hear me?
I can hear it. We can hear you. Yes, we can.
Awesome. First of all, thank you so much for your presentations. It's really helpful, and I love the fact that you put this together. I think it's a topic a lot of us care about. So again, thank you very much for all this. I really appreciate it. The question that I have is one that I've kind of mulled around in my head for a while. I have a job. I've been employed gainfully for quite a while. I have a job that fortunately I already work from home. You know, much like a lot of other people who have periodic paralysis, you know, there are days that are completely touch and go. It just so happens I'm in a season right now where I'm really touch and go. There are days I just can't even get out of bed, or I have to take, you know, half the day off, kind of a thing. Now, I'm lucky that I have an employer who's very good about that. My question comes down to disability. I've been wondering, I don't know enough about it. Is it something that I should file for as like almost like a backup plan? You know, like God forbid I get to that point where I can't work, or you know, or maybe I just get past like an FMLA thing and I just need to rely on it. Is it something worth applying for disability as like a backup plan to make sure that like if God forbid the worst happens, I still have some sort of an income?
Mhm.
Or because I make well more than like what a disability like income allotment would be, is it just kind of like I wouldn't apply for it? I've never understood how that works.
Well, first of all, I would talk with an attorney that specializes in Social Security disability. They would be able to tell you exactly what the filing statuses are. Um, I, Linda and I both I've been on Social Security disability, and Linda has too, but I don't think either one of us would want to venture into trying to advise you on that. It wouldn't be fair to you. So I would talk to an attorney, and they'll speak with you pro bono. And I'd also talk with your doctor or doctors and talk, because it's not like the disability insurance that you get through your employer, which is not too difficult to get approved for. Social Security disability is more difficult to get approved for. It's a much longer process. So in my case, I have long and short-term disability. Now, if I go through a period like I did about 15 years ago, where I was kind of like in a perpetual episode, that's what got me through that. And I filed for Social Security while I was on my company's disability insurance. But it takes a very long time for you to get approved for it. So I would talk with your doctor, and I would talk with an attorney about that.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I just wanted to add, Brian, that I talk to so many people who are trying to apply for Social Security disability. And back in the day when I did it, I was able to do it on my own. I would never suggest that anybody do that anymore. I think that you really need to use a Social Security disability attorney, and they will give you a free consult at absolutely no skin off your teeth to go in and talk to them and see exactly what they think, because
And
it's not an easy process.
and it doesn't affect your disbursement either. They're paid
No.
completely separately from that.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. And then along those same lines, like, back to Evelyn's presentation about ADAs, I mean, I want to just confirm my assumption. Just having a diagnosis from your doctor is sufficient to classify you as disabled. You don't need some other sort of like filing other than that to prove to your employer you have a disability, correct?
Correct. Yes, it all goes through what they call a medical certification. And so once you get all the ADA paperwork filled out, you take it to the employer and they would consider you disabled.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have somebody else? Cheryl? Har?
I'm still muted.
There you are. We can hear you. We can hear you, Cheryl.
Actually, I'm here with my son Jared, who's 19, and he's the one that has a question for you.
Okay.
So right now I'm going through the process of looking for a job and getting hired. So my question would be, when would I need to tell my potential employers about my medical condition? Is that something I tell them in the first interview? Do I have to write that on a resume? When would that be?
Well, that was the one question that I was hoping nobody would ask. Because as an HR person, right, in the interview process, we cannot ask that question. We never will ask that question. Even if you disclose a disability, we cannot ask the degree of disability or even what the limitations of your disability could imply for the position. That would have to be something that we got from the medical provider. So, I mean, honestly, I would love to say that in a perfect world, you disclose up front, and the employers who are looking for a diverse workforce, who appreciate ADA and what it does for the workforce, they're going to hire you. You know what I mean? But I can't tell you that will happen 100% of the time.
What kind of job are you applying for, Jared?
Just different kinds of store positions, like GameStop, working as somebody in GameStop to help with customers and whatnot.
Yeah.
But,
and how's your endurance?
During the winter times, not that good. There are times where I go into abortive attacks during the winter months, but I usually am fine during the summer months. But that's when I'll be going to college. That's a moot point.
August.
Well,
technically, yeah.
You know what? The larger the employer, the likelier they are to try and include disabled people with disabilities into their workforce. Smaller employers, of course, have more rights of refusal. So if anything, I'd say, large employer, disclose up front, and you might get some. At the end of the day, there are protections at the stage of applicant, right? It's just my experience that I know that some employers will say, if I have two candidates and they're both equally qualified and one has a disability and the other does not, everything else being equal, and they can prove that the other person perhaps had some more qualifications, maybe a little more experience, they can go that route. But we try really hard as employers to never put ourselves in a position where an applicant can come back and say they noticed my disability, even if I didn't disclose it, they observed it, and that's why I didn't get the position. So I'm going to just retract and say that your best policy, you're so young, and I'm, you know, and unfortunately you're going to come across this situation for the rest of your adult life because we all have to work. And I would say disclose up front.
Okay.
Okay, I have something to add to that. As a recruiter, I have never had anybody tell me about a disability until we get to the offer phase. I've had people tell me, but it's not until they get to the offer phase because of what Evelyn just said. You know, in a perfect world,
Right.
employers wouldn't do that. You know, so it's kind of a gut check kind of a thing. You know, I've had people who stutter, and they felt that that was a disability, and they would say to me, "Is my stutter going to interfere with me getting this job?" And you know, it hasn't. But if you're going into a place like GameStop where you're going to be on your feet all day and you're going to be lifting boxes and things like that, I know I never could have done that. When I was your age, I could hardly like keep my hands over my head for 30 seconds, let alone having to move boxes around. So you have to think about not only, you know, are you going to be covered, but are you going to be happy doing that job if it's going to be so taxing on you? So, you know, there's just some things to think about. But like I said, I've never had, in the more than 20 years I've been a recruiter, I've never had, like in the first interview, somebody tell me, by the way, I have a disability or I have epilepsy or something like that. It usually happens further on into the interview.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? I'm going down the list here. I'm looking for hands.
Beth Martin Namor?
Beth, you have a question? Let me get back up here and let me make sure you're unmuted. I don't know why you're not unmuting, Beth. Just hang in there with me for a minute. I've got everybody. Okay, Beth, you should be able to talk. Beth, can you hear us? Or can you speak? That's what I should be saying. It says you're self-muted, Beth.
All right, I'm not, but not that I know of.
No, now we can hear you. We can hear you
Oh,
now.
good. Okay, my question was like, I haven't worked since my, well, since my second daughter was born, but I didn't actually find out I had periodic paralysis or start having symptoms until after my third daughter was born, which was like 5 years later. And so when I contemplate going back to work or going on disability, I just wonder, I don't know if I ever could go back to work, and I've never ever attempted to consider going on disability just because I don't know enough about it.
Well, I would suggest that you speak with a Social Security disability attorney. They'll talk with you pro bono. There's no cost involved if they represent you and you win, but I would talk to them. You have to have so many points in order to qualify for disability, so it depends on how long you worked, but they would be able to tell you that. And as far as working, you know, it's just, you know, what would you be interested in doing? And could you possibly do it remotely? And that would probably be the easiest thing.
Yeah, I used to be a registered nurse, but I couldn't go back to that at this point.
Well, then you could possibly be a case manager for an insurance company who's just calling, you know, diabetes or stroke patients and other people and talking to them, making sure they're taking their medication and going to their doctor's appointments and things like that.
Yeah, I noticed you said that. That's very interesting.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and I've placed nurses doing that before.
Great.
I don't do that now, but I did in the past.
Uh-huh. Yeah, well, that's helpful. And I will check out attorney.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I do pro bono.
Yeah, I would check it out, Beth, because even if you get Social Security disability, and this is because I talked to people who have gotten it, they always give you a chance to try to go back to work, and you're not going to lose your Social Security disability. There are a certain number of months that they will let you try to go back to work. So, you know, even if you do obtain the Social Security and want to try, you're free to do that. There's absolutely no reason that you can't.
Okay,
I did that.
good.
Yeah. Anybody else? I'm looking for hands here.
Mhm.
I don't know why it's not unmuting. Unmute them. Yeah, you have to unmute yourselves if you want to say something. I'm looking to see. I'm looking for a likely prospect here. See if I can get them talking. Howard, I haven't talked to you in a long time. Can you, what are you doing these days, Howard? Can you hear me? You should be able to talk. Not sure Howard's hearing me. Let's see. Oh, this is hard tonight to get these people unmuted. Yes. Wow. I'm trying to think of, I don't know why this is happening. You should all be open and be able to talk if you raise your hand. If you see the little hand down there, you can click on the little hand. Because I keep thinking that there are more questions out there and we're just not hearing them.
I have a question.
Okay.
I've always felt like I need to get my husband like a wristband or something like that that people can look at and know that he has a condition if he goes down, that it's not an emergency. Don't call 911. And everything I've looked at just won't hold enough information to tell anybody what's needed. Has anybody found a magic something?
I found them on Amazon, and you can have them engraved on the front and the back. I lost mine. I wanted one that looked like jewelry, and that obviously was a bad idea because the loop broke and I lost it. But my daughter has one that is more like a watch, and she hasn't had any problems with hers, and it's engravable on the front and the back. If you give if Linda has your email address, if she'll share it with me, I'll go back and find out where I got it on Amazon and I'll send it to Linda.
Okay. The only thing I found is that there's an app that you can put on your phone. It will be on your home screen that people can open.
Yeah.
But not everybody's going to do that.
Right. And they wouldn't know to look for it because the medical emergency people are looking for like a wristband or a necklace, medical alert.
Yeah, and I actually have found from a lot of people that the phone actually works better. I've been in the hospital and I have yet to have somebody look at my medical alert bracelet. I mean, I don't know what they think. They just totally ignore it. So I think that if you have a phone that has that information, that it's a good thing. I don't know, they just kind of seem to latch on to somebody's phone these days. There's also, of course, there's expensive watches that you can put all this information onto too. If you have an Apple Watch or something, you can have all your medical information on there.
Well, Mike just said maybe put the message on the wristband. All my medical information is on my emergency app on my phone.
That would be excellent. Yeah, that's good.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
If I could interject something on this topic too, this is Cheryl Haar.
Hi, Cheryl.
I just found a new company called Road ID. You can find them on the internet. They're based out of Kentucky because we've used wristbands, my son and I, for years. There's a lot of times we're paralyzed, we can't speak. So I put a lot of information on our medical alert bands, and Road ID has some really neat ones that you can put a fair amount of information on the front of it.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
There's also some that have like the same little microchip that you put in your dog or your cat. They go in a wristband so that they can just swipe it. And that's supposed to be the new thing that all the EMTs are going to start carrying, these wands, so they can get all your medical information off of a phone or of a wristband.
Yeah, I keep telling my husband that I'm going to get my chest tattooed because I figure that they take your clothes off in the hospital and that then they can just start reading. But he said I'd have to cover up my whole chest with writing in order for them to read all the information that I want to give to them.
It was hard to find a medical alert bracelet that
Yeah.
you can engrave both front and back to put everything on there. So I understand what you're saying.
I see that Nicole.
That is hilarious.
Nicole, you're unmuted. If you have a question, go ahead.
Yes, I have two questions. They're somewhat. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. My question is, I have worked for a healthcare organization for about 16 years, and I have an FMLA. And the problem with my FMLA is that I cannot necessarily call in sick because I can't necessarily make a phone call or communicate.
Yeah.
I often paralyzed and speak. I don't do anything.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when you're paralyzed, you're paralyzed.
Yeah. And you live alone?
Yeah. And I do usually live alone. Not always, and then it's a problem when I'm not alone. But I am usually alone, and so that is a problem. It is written into my FMLA currently that I won't be able to call in, but I don't know what wording should be in the FMLA or if it should be in my accommodation, because when the FMLA gets approved, that wording is gone. Nobody knows about it. The wording that I may not call in.
I'm not sure what you mean when it's approved. I mean, you already have FMLA for this.
It gets approved by a third party company, and they just fill out a form that says I have an FMLA that covers me for 120 days a year, and you know, and how often I can miss work.
Okay, well, definitely more details need to be added to that, because there is a certain time frame, and I can't remember how many days. If you do call out that you have to communicate and to the employer. So, for example, for the FMLA, the employer can ask you for ongoing medical updates or certifications. You can certainly have your doctor add some of that wording and present that to them so that they can capture it. It should be written somewhere, because, I mean, you've been there 16 years, so obviously the employer is working with you. Because you'd be surprised, you know, how at times employers kind of like go ahead.
My doctor does add the wording, but not part of what is approved.
Well, then it would be an ADA accommodation that needs to be added to your FMLA.
Okay. And I also have an ADA accommodation. And most of what my doctor puts in the accommodation
you're breaking up a little bit, Nicole.
Is not also.
It's not approved. What's on your ADA?
I said, right. For example, my doctor fills out the ADA form and it says that I may need to work from home up to 3 days a month. And that part of my accommodation is not approved. And I wanted to know if there's anything that I can do about that.
The employer should have to give you a denial for that and the reason for their denial. So again, if you being out 3 days out of the month, they have to prove that it's an undue hardship for them. So
Okay.
they should have had to given you something, some kind of document if they denied the accommodation, telling you why. And then if we looked at the why, we can maybe figure out how to contest that a bit further.
Okay. They did not provide me with any reason why, just a denial. And verbally, I'm told I should use my FMLA to work at home.
Well, you can, and you can do intermittent FMLA. It can say that you need to be home 3 days out of the month, but I'm sure you can't exactly, schedule when you have an episode or anything like that. So it probably should be a little more generous than 3 days out of the month.
Right. But if I use my FMLA, then I am on vacation time actually for the first 3 days. And then, I'm not getting paid.
I understand that
if
part.
I'm working at home. Yeah.
Do you mind if I ask what you do?
I am a dietitian and I manage nutrition services for a healthcare system.
Okay. And they require, do you have to be on site to do that, or is it something you can do remotely?
Most of what I do is on the computer.
Okay.
But I can see why they want me to be on site some of the time at least.
Okay.
Sure, but even in that, telework is considered a reasonable accommodation.
Yeah.
Provided your position can be done remotely. So, I'd go back to them. And it's interesting that you say your third party is managing this. I'd go back to your HR department and talk to them about telework as a reasonable accommodation. And some of that information is in the PowerPoint slide. And they do in fact have to give you a reason why they would deny an accommodation.
Yeah. Okay. And I've gone all the way up through human resources and
You're breaking up.
They just said, well, if you're not well, you can just be. I call human resources. I have talked with them about the accommodation, and they just say I should use they are accommodating me because I have an FMLA.
No, those are two separate things. FMLA and an ADA for a diagnosed disability are two different things. And you qualify for both if you have a PP diagnosis.
Yeah, they might be. I think they may be trying to have you use your FMLA, but you probably shouldn't be. Correct, Evelyn?
Yeah, you can use it and exhaust it, which is probably what you'll end up doing. But then you're still covered. You can be covered by both concurrently. Is the thing. So I would work. they're supposed to try and work with you to come up with the best solution. And I think that a combination of office and telework would probably be the best solution for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think so too.
So I think you need to look at the paperwork that they've given you, the paperwork they had you fill out, and again, they have to give you. I'm sorry, what state are you in?
I am in Oregon.
Okay, I would imagine it's similar to California.
They say something about Oregon is not a right to work state.
Yeah,
I don't know exactly how that applies to this case,
I don't
Well,
Yeah, I don't know why right to
I'm just
work.
going to jump in real fast. A right to work state is the vast majority of states in the union, but that does not supersede ADA or FMLA at all.
it does not.
You still have to follow the federal guidelines for that, even in a state that's not a right to work state, which again is 39 or 43 states out of the union. It absolutely does not apply to ADA or FMLA.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is true.
It sounds like maybe they're hoping that you don't completely understand your rights, and maybe they don't completely understand them either.
Right. Yeah, I think the way the system is set up, the manager just decides, and then if you disagree, you talk to an insurance company. So who manages this? But then the insurance company, and no one, I don't know. It's a very strange, it seems like it's a strange system because they don't particularly want to know what the problem with working is and working in the hospital is, and they don't particularly want to know what it is that I do.
Well, Evelyn, what would you think of her like contacting the state labor board and getting an understanding what FMLA is in Oregon? Because I've only worked with Georgia and Florida, and I think you've just been Florida too, right?
Well, I mean, yes. Yeah, I've been. Also, just a note, when you say you're the manager, are you talking about your direct supervisor?
What? I'm a manager of nutrition services. I have supervisors under me.
You mean subordinates? No. When you said the person that's managing your FMLA, did you say it was your manager or an HR manager?
Well, the person who decides whether I can have what I can have in my ADA accommodation is my manager.
Okay, so that's not supposed to be the case at all.
She decides. She does not even know what I do. I mean, I work with a very large organization.
Medical.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would. I mean, if you work for a large organization, then I would hit their corporate headquarters, their HR corporate person up. Your manager shouldn't see any of your ADA or FMLA paperwork. They shouldn't be privy to any of your medical history.
She's not.
Done by HR.
She neither knows. She doesn't know what I do for my job, nor what my medical issues are.
Well, somebody would have to see the medical information to approve an accommodation.
Right. And I spoke with a nurse at an insurance company about that. But she did not ask anything. Not one question.
That sounds really, really out of norm for sure.
It's like they outsourced HR at the company.
This is Brian. Well, I will add that I've seen this before where they'll take things like this and they will actually outsource it to a consulting company to process some of their FMLA or ADA type concerns. It is like an HR consulting thing. I know because my partner who worked for Lowe's in the past, this is exactly what happened with him with an injury, and it ended up being something that we were suddenly surprised to see all these
Right.
letters from like a third party. So
Well,
I've definitely heard of this, and they're really in the
right.
business of finding every reason to not accommodate you,
With
unfortunately. Like
workers'
our
comp,
insurance
that
company.
is most of the time that's the case with workers' comp, but I've never heard of a company outsourcing their FMLA certification. The
Me neither,
workers'
because that
Oh,
comp,
has
we
to be
definitely do.
monitored.
that's I haven't had any companies that I've been involved with do that, so I couldn't say.
Well,
The other thing is, since you mentioned you were a manager and you had subordinates, there's also some language about whether or not you are a key employee, and that can also affect some of the accommodations that they can give you. So there's some criteria, like you have to be in the top 10% highest paid, bracket for the company. I mean, there's some criteria that defines you as a key employee, but that is also a way for employers to have to shed the burden of approving an accommodation. So definitely a little bit of research, and I actually don't mind looking into a little bit about what Oregon's state laws look like. I have access to some resources I can do that with. So again, if you want to share your info with Linda, or I'm
I
happy
will
to
give you.
get back with you.
I'll
okay.
give I'll give everybody my email, so that if you have questions that aren't getting answered tonight, please email me. And
Okay.
I'll give you a chance to all get something to write with, and it's actually on the PPA website too. But if you write to me, just send it to L, and then my last name, Feld. It's F as in Frank, E as in Edward, L as in Linda, D as in David, at CFL. It's C as in cat, F as in Frank, L as in Linda, .rr.com. So does anybody else have a question for us about anything? You can ask anything. I see question marks coming up here, and I'm not sure. Jaroslava? Jaroslava, do you have a question? I'll unmute you and so we can see. Jaroslava, and oh, this sounds like a Russian Ukrainian name. Hello? No? Hello? Maybe not. Something else that I wanted to bring up tonight is the fact that you may have noticed when you signed on tonight that there was a slide there for a service dog, and I happen to have a service dog. My service dog is from Canine Companions for Independence, and that word independence in their name definitely means something, because first of all, it's a nonprofit organization. They have 7 centers across the United States. The dogs are provided to people with disabilities free of charge, and these dogs are taught tasks. My dog's name is Valentine, and he knows approximately 45 different commands that he can do for me, as far as opening doors, drawers, picking things up that I drop, running elevators, opening doors. I'm trying to think of some of the other things that he does to help me. Some of them are things around the house, but I mean, he could get something out of the refrigerator if I wanted him to do that. So, if you work and these dogs are allowed to go to a workplace with you, they can do a lot to help you during the day. If you're in a wheelchair, some days the dogs actually have a harness that can be put on them that they can pull the wheelchair. You just have to specify that when you're applying for the dog. And again, all the dogs are provided free of charge. And the website for that organization is cci.org. It's cci.org. And if you have any questions about it, feel free to ask me, or we can ask Valentine. But that sometimes makes it easier for you to go to work too. Anybody else?
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
When someone mentioned like an ID tag or something like that,
Uh-huh.
and I just got mine in the mail today. It's called My ID.
Okay.
And pardon me?
Yeah, we hear you. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
that's basically it. It's called My ID, and I believe it basically has my basic information. It has my name, my spouse's telephone number, my sister's telephone number, and then the fact that I have hyperkalemic periodic paralysis on it. Because to me, that was like the most important thing. If someone didn't know me, that they would want to know right away. And then because it's My ID, I have an iPhone, but it also works with an Android. There's an app that you put your, it's the same the same, what do they call it? It's like the logo or whatever. It's the same. And like ambulance people or whatever can just touch your phone or maybe scan it, and it will tell them all your information.
Yeah,
So
I really
whether
think, yeah, the phones are a good idea.
yeah, but this because if I have this on my wrist or if I have it in my purse or somewhere where they find it, they will automatically know that if they go to my phone, they're going to see, like, they'll get all my medical information. So
Yeah.
I just got mine. I've been looking for something for a long time, and then I found this.
Everybody should also do something else on their phone, and no matter what kind of phone, you can do this. You have a place on your phone where you have your contacts, and at least maybe one or two people on that contact list should have the letters ICE after their name. It means in case of emergency. So in case of emergency, paramedics are taught to look for that ICE designation next to one of your contact names. It's really helpful to them to be able to just call somebody from your phone, and that person on the other end knows something about you and what's happening to you. I would give that person as much information as you can, written down, or it's hard to remember verbally everything that we have wrong with us, but if you give it to them written down, hopefully then that information would get to the hospital if you couldn't speak.
Yeah, definitely.
Anybody else? Well, I don't see anybody else coming up here. So, Beth, you didn't have anything else, did you?
No, I'm done. I mean,
Okay.
listening, but done.
Okay, and Nicole, you're finished? I'm just looking for green marks here. So I appreciate all of you coming in tonight and listening. This is being recorded, and it will be put on the PPA website for people to refer to. And we can certainly get this information that Evelyn and Christine have shared tonight to anyone that needs it, as far as the different websites and everything that you can go to. Evelyn, you have anything else you want to add, or Christine? Go ahead, Evelyn.
Just that, I know that the FMLA and the ABA can be difficult to navigate. Know that there are protections in place, and employers are supposed to behave are supposed to err on the side of the employee in these situations. And When they're not, they can be called out on that. There are ways to call them out on that, and it's just a matter of, you know, having the proper resources so that you can do that.
Yeah. Christine, anything else to add?
Well, if anyone has any questions, you know, that they weren't comfortable asking about working remote or, you know, doing any kind of business type of thing, I'm happy to talk with them. I've been working remote for like 6 years, and I've done it one time before that, and I've had different businesses that I've started, and it really helped me to kind of just navigate this whole thing, because it's hard to work when you have what we have. I mean, and working remote, if it wasn't for that, I don't think I'd still be working, honestly.
Yeah, it's no fun trying to work with periodic paralysis, because you just never know when something is going to happen to you, and if something happens to you, you can be gone for for some time.
Right.
And it's important for people that work around you. I always ask everybody to please share with somebody who you work with that that you trust, that's a friend. Please share with them what you have, so that if you do have an attack where you can't speak for yourself, that this person will know that they need to step in and give the paramedics at least some basic information about you, especially whether or not you're hypo or hyper, because that can be life-saving. It truly can. So everybody stay medicated as best you can, and try to stay out of attacks. That's what we, you know, try to stress with everybody, that if you can just avoid the attacks, it's better for you and everybody around you. But we know that's not always possible. So, you know, anytime you need us, just send me an email and I will try to get back to you that day. And we still have Ask the Experts on the PPA website, so you can write in and talk to one of the doctors at Ask the Experts. And there is going to be a lot of new, exciting information coming out of the PPA in the next few weeks. Just watch for our announcements, and I think you'll really enjoy it. I know Evelyn knows what it is, and she's not even looking because she doesn't want to give it away. See, she's playing, no, she says, I'm not going to tell anybody. But yeah, we're really stressing this year that we try to help you as much as possible. There will be another webinar in February, and I believe it's February 25th. That one will start at 7 o'clock at night, and we expect to have quite a group of people there, because the title of that webinar is going to be Love, Lust, and Trust. So that should really get everybody.
Sounds pretty racy.
It'll be racy. In fact, we actually are going to tell people that we think it's for 18 and above. What you share with your children beyond that is up to you. So it's gonna be a fun night, and you know, I hope that you will join us and partake in the fun of Valentine's Day month anyway. So that's February 25th. The announcement for it will be going out shortly. So good night, everybody. Thank you for coming, and we'll hope to see you again in February. And thank you,
Thank you
Christine,
for having us.
and thanks, Evelyn.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's
Thank
our
you.
pleasure.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.